Our next speaker is Marifeli Pérez-Stable. I want to welcome José Miguel Vivanco.
It's great to be here, and I appreciate the invitation to share this this afternoon with the 5 honorees who well deserve the award. It's an honor to be here with them in spirit and with all of you. Miriam mentioned that there was some controversy surrounding the title of this panel, and I want to introduce another dimension of the controversy, and that, of what is appropriate, and that is that Cuba, in fact, has had 57 years of dictatorship, and I would make a parenthesis for the year 1959 to understand how, in fact, every opportunity to institutionalized democracy was closed down by the then revolutionary government. What this means is that the last free and fair, without other adjectives, presidential election in Cuba was in 1948. Batista's coup preempted the election that was going to take place in June of 1952. That's, I think, a measure of everything that we have to overcome. The 5 Cubans we are honoring today have been persecuted for their views and their peaceful activities. They want democracy, they defend human rights, and they are asserting their freedom as human beings. Human rights are not partisan rights. The adjective is human, and it means that governments are charged with protecting human rights, not dispensing human rights. There is no such thing as justifying political repression because a government, as the Cuban government claims, fulfills social rights. They are human rights, and they are ours, not any government. And the Cuban government, along many other governments in the world, deserves condemnation because, not only because it carries out repression, but because it tries to trivialize what is so central to living in peace in a society, that is, human rights. The resistance, and I like very much that consigna, that we are all resistance, as worthy and as courageous as it is, hasn't yet made a connection that will happen in time, and that in fact could be closer. Sometimes history happens, and after it does happen, you say, oh, we didn't realize we were so close. And they haven't made the connection yet to that silent majority that grows by the day of ordinary Cubans who go about their business, who try to make a living against all odds, and their discontent is manifested for now largely on their economic situation, which doesn't improve in spite of, and I'm not going to argue with José here because that's not the point, but I do think that Raúl Castro could have and maybe still could make some economic reforms of some substance. But at any rate, it hasn't happened. Ordinary Cubans have not seen an improvement in their living standards. And I think the challenge for us from the outside, but from the outside we can do very little, but for the people inside Cuba is to make that connection with the economic concerns that ultimately are political, that ultimately are a struggle for freedom. You can't have economic freedom without at least more space for political freedom. In the end, we know intellectually and in practice that over time, not taking a specific period of time in a specific country, but over time, sustaining the well-being of citizens demands democracy, respect for human rights, and freedom. Democratic governments are a lot more successful than authoritarian or totalitarian governments in delivering the goods. I have 3 minutes, and I'm not going to take up, well, I will take up the 3 minutes, but let me then say the following, and that is that we Cubans on the island in the first place, but those of us in the diaspora, the exile community, we need a common narrative. What I'm trying to say is that we need to tell the story of the past 50, 57 years with all its horrors, but also with all its heroism in multiple voices, but in one narrative. I react from the bottom of my heart and mind against either or, because our culture, our history has been too either or, and we have to tend bridges. We have to make sure that we never again have a situation like we had in 1959, when it seemed that a new Cuba was finally going to happen, and so many well-meaning Cubans got on the bandwagon of the revolution and looked the other way, or didn't think that it was so important that the civil liberties of the opposition were being curtailed, and that they either did not know or cheered when people were summarily executed after a mock trial the day before. We have to derive the richness or thrive in the richness of our differences, including people who are in the government today. You know, I'm sure that almost everyone here over the past couple of weeks with all the events in Iran, it is astounding that some of the clerics, and we're right at the beginning of what's happening in Iran, some of the clerics way up top are siding with the demonstrators. And so one element, it's not the only element, but one element of regime change in Iran and in Cuba is the moment that some at the top begin to step to the side. So I'm glad José mentioned intransigence, because I want to conclude with a simple idea, and that is that our only intransigence has to be that the ends never justify the means, and that respect for human rights should be our only intransigence. Again, human rights, not partisan rights, human rights. They're ours, whether endowed by our Creator or by our belief in a common humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marifeli.